Hey, real quick, everybody, want to give a shout to our friends over at betonline.ag. I know the NFL's over, the Super Bowl's done. We got Major League Baseball, NHL, March Madness coming around the corner, which to me is the greatest postseason sporting event of all time and what I like to wager on the most. So head over to betonline.ag as soon as you can. Tell them Jboy sent you, whether it's prop bets, whether it's parlays, whether you want to go straight up, or whether you're into teasers, pleasers, whatever you like to do. They have it over there, and the online casino is open 24 hours a day. There's always something going down at betonline.ag. So check our friends out over there and tell them Jboy sent you.
You are listening to the Jboy Show, your number one source for Auburn and the SEC.
My goal was to run through his soul and grab his heart when I run through his soul.
Kurt, Nate, Coach Staff, those are memories.
I think we've established ourselves as, I think, the premier conference in college football.
Now, the SEC is better at the top. It's better in the middle.
The Southeastern Conference remains the premier conference.
Now takes the snap. Looking for the receiver. He's got Lutz Kirk. Touchdown, Auburn!
Think about it. It's always been the SEC and everybody else trying to catch it.
I think this is probably the best league from a competitive venue standpoint.
They have the most capable teams. You just look at those programs, the way they recruit, how they invest.
Snap to Burrow. 3 steps. Fires. Back corner of the end zone. Over the shoulder catch. Did he hold on? He did. Justin Jefferson. Touchdown, Tiger.
And now, your host, Jboy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Saturday, a little bonus edition of the Jboy Show. And really excited today to bring in a guy we've all known, we've seen on the screen, unbelievably talented, whether it's music, whether it's acting, whether it was sports when he was younger, which we're going to talk about, and how that kind of shaped him in the limelight to where he moved. An incredible story, an incredible person. Justin Guarini, you may know him as Lil Sweet. You may know him from American Idol, but Justin, it's an honor to have you, brother. I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, man, it's so nice to be here. Thank you very much. I love the setup you got. The locker room feel in the background is awesome. I'm excited to be here, and I can't wait to dig into all things Jboy Show, man.
Oh, definitely. Well, I appreciate it. And again, I'd love to take credit for that, but the team around me, man, that they're the aesthetic visionary. I just do the talking, so I'm sure they're really excited to hear that. But I'm going to jump right into it, Justin, because there's so many things that you've done and that you've accomplished at really a young age. And, you know, obviously with American Idol, the first season, which I'm sure was nuts, I want to start there. Can you take us back to that first audition, or maybe where you heard about American Idol and said, you know, this is something I think I can do?
Wow, it was wild because that first audition, and if we even go back a little bit further to when I heard about it, my mom was literally just watching some TV. And for the entirety of my life, I'd always wanted to be a performer. I'd always wanted to be on stage. I had been on stage. I had been in high school musicals. I had gone after a record label, did all kinds of stuff, but it never quite clicked. And so I was working for a DJ in a wedding company that also did weddings, DJs, bar and bat mitzvahs. And like, I literally was the dude who came with the DJ and it was like, oh, everybody, let's have a good time. Like,
you were the hype man. You were the
hype
hype
man. I was
man.
the hype man. I was totally
it.
the hype, one of the
I
hype people. Usually it was like 2 hype guys and 2 hype girls. And like, we would entertain the kids. Like, that was our job, was to entertain the 13-year-old children while mom and dad, who paid like $30,000, $40,000 for these bar mitzvahs, like went off and drank themselves silly. And like, we would dance with the bubbalas, and like, it was great. And so that experience was such a proving ground, because one of the most difficult audiences I have ever had to entertain was 13-year-old children. And then you want to talk about 13-year-old children with money. You know, it is a whole nother. So that was what was happening. My mom was sitting watching TV one day, and like, literally there was an ad where they must have spent $5 on the ad and like used like stock footage or maybe some footage from the UK version. And man, let me tell you, she was like, you should check this out. I went to the website. It was janky. And now the internet in 2002 was not like the internet is now. True. But we did have the World Wide Web. And like, I went to the, fox.com/American Idol. And it was just like links didn't work and pictures. It was literally, they were building the plane as they were flying it.
Yeah.
And so I basically fast forward, I can download the document where you sign your life away, and I bring said document to New York City, Times Square. It's freezing cold that morning. It was early on in the year 2002. I'm standing in line at 5 o'clock in the morning, cold, reading the first Harry Potter. That tells you how long ago it was.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I, for a moment, because it was cold, because people were singing and just being obnoxious in the line, I, for a moment, thought, you know what? I should probably just leave. I can hop on the train and head back home. I don't need to be here.
How close were you, Justin? How close were you though? Honestly, and that's hilarious. I'm sure that scene had to be crazy, but how close were you to actually turning? It's crazy for me to think the guy that ended up being a finalist, this huge star that blossomed, was that close to turning around and not going to the audition, and you just decided to stick it out.
You know what? It's a good lesson. It's a good lesson for me now, and I haven't even thought about it this way. But it's like there's this book. Actually, Sharon Lecter wrote it. It's called Three Feet from Gold. Okay. And what a lot of people don't recognize, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners who have played sports, or a lot of your listeners who are influencers and entrepreneurs, can attest to the fact that, man, we all come up to situations where there came that moment when we could turn back and just be like, nah, I don't want to do this. But we stuck it out just a day, just a week, just, that 3 feet longer. And all of a sudden we have this amazing life-changing event. And that was what it was for me. And I had, before then, I'd given up on projects. I'd given up on myself. I'd given up on my dreams and my hopes. But something inside of me, as I was standing there freezing, not wearing the appropriate clothing for what was a cold day, something was like, nah, you should stay. You've come. And I think it was just out of, it's gonna take more effort to leave and get back home than it will be just to stand here, because we stood there for hours. It was 5 o'clock in the morning when I got there, and I probably didn't get in the doors to the building till probably close to 1 p.m. Wow. Like, we were standing there.
Well, so you get in, and I wonder, because obviously I've never auditioned for American Idol. I can't sing nearly well enough to even have a chance. But when you went in there, it wasn't just like Simon Cowell and Paula and Randy right there, right? You had to go through what kind of different levels, or maybe they just heard you and said, yeah, let's go ahead and get this guy in.
Yeah, it was a hurry up and wait. That's a thing we love to say.
Yeah, it's
hurry
true.
Up and wait. And it really was hurry up and wait, because not only was I waiting in line there for hours to get into the building where I was going to audition, I sat in a conference room, and it was the Millennium Hotel, which is still standing in Times Square. And I went, when they put us in this big holding room, which was a conference room, right? And like, it's not like there was like coffee and donuts.
Like cattle, man. They put you in there like cattle. Yeah.
Hence cattle call, which is what it's called. That's exactly what it is. And so we were penned up like cattle, and we sat and we waited some more. And then I had to go eventually, hours later, again, went downstairs, and I sat in another smaller conference room on the outside of the rectangle with all these chairs and all these other people sitting outside the rectangle. And one chair was in the middle with this guy with a clipboard, and another chair was right in front of him. And everybody just took turns going in and literally sitting on the hot seat. It was terrifying, terrifying.
I bet.
And then once we made it through that process, that piece of paper was taken into a room where we literally stood side by side, 5 or 6 of us, like it was a chorus line. And it was such the typical audition, cattle call audition, where you literally step forward, you sing a verse and a chorus, and then you step back, and you're hearing everybody else. There are people, behind the table, like, looking at you and like
judging you 100%,
judging you up. Like, it must be like I mean, it's probably what the combine is like, right?
That's what it is, really. I mean, that's what it is when you look at it.
I mean, I'm surprised they didn't just make me do this and turn around and like check my, look at my teeth and everything. Like, oh my God. So it was insane. And yes, there were a ton of hoops you had to jump through before you got to the point that you could be on camera, for sure. It was a matter of weeks, actually.
Wow, that's incredible. And I want to stop right there, Justin, because something me and you talked about in the pre-show that I think, moments shape our lives, right? And stuff that we did when we were younger in situations. And you're a guy that was heavily involved in sports. And, when I watch you, whether it's the Lil Sweet commercials, we'll get to, they're asking you to do stuff you got to be pretty athletic to do, whether it's jumping out of a oversized washing machine. But how did athletics growing up? I know you played football. I know you played baseball and stuff like that. How did those moments, being in competition, shape you for when you got in front of Simon Cowell and Randy and Paula and said, I've been asked to compete in front of people before. I'm ready for this moment, and just maybe some other moments of your life. Just take me through that if you don't mind, Just.
It was a lifetime experience worth of pressure. Yeah. How to handle pressure, how to step up to the plate, if you will. You want to use a sports analogy.
Yeah, there you go.
And handle
knocked that out of the park.
Thank you. I think it's a safe subject to talk about. So, it's all about pressure and how to deal with the pressure of the moment. And the reason why I formed a company called Profit Under Pressure is because I have throughout my life, beyond entertainment, just learned how to cope with and not just survive, but thrive under pressure. Yeah. And you want to talk about, what you talk about in the sports arena, millions of people watching, even just like a regular season game, right? Like in the pros, like millions of people watch. And it's that ability to perform under pressure in those clutch moments and to be able to deliver that I learned with sports. Sure, it might have been in front of my high school. Sure, it might have been in front of just my family or whatever. But when I played football, when I played baseball, when I was the co-captain of my volleyball team in high school, it was learning how not only to handle the pressure, but how to do it with other people as a team, as a unit, as a whole. And yet when I stepped up in front of Simon, Paula, and Randy in that moment, I was alone, but I wasn't alone. I had all of the people who had supported me, who had told me that I could sing, who had taught me how to sing, who had taught me how to play baseball, who taught me how to play football, who taught me how to handle the big moments in volleyball and the strategy and all of those people, while they were not physically there with me, that DNA, those experiences were running through my veins, right? And I bet you anyone who's been in that situation, especially in sports or whatever, in business, if you really think about it, all of those teachers and mentors are there with you, even though you might be standing on that stage alone.
That's such a great point. That's such a great point. And even if it's a little thing, even if it was, somebody, boosting your confidence as a young guy, maybe when you were struggling or something like that. And I think that's a great parallel because Justin, it's great. The entertainment industry is as competitive as anything. It's competitive as the NFL. It's competitive as Major League Baseball, all that stuff. And you have to be a competitive person and enjoy being in that moment. Like you said, enjoy having those clutch moments, but you don't get there without other people or having something to look back on it. And I think you encapsulated that perfectly. And I want to transition, Justin, using that to you knock it out of the park with to use the baseball term again. I'm going to see how many of those I can use before we get off today. But you do so well, and all of a sudden, when was the moment where you were walking down the street and people started saying, "Wait a minute, that's Justin Guarini"? How long did that take in the process, and how just and again, not from an arrogant standpoint, not for something like that, but just rewarding, almost vindicating feeling of, man, I'm glad I stuck it out in that cold weather to go do that audition.
Oh, man, I wish I had been able to have that kind of perspective at 22. I definitely didn't have that. But I will say that as soon as the show went live, and I'm talking about the very first show.
Let's get it, baby. Let's get it.
That was it. It wasn't the top 10 or anything. It was like episode 101, where they're like, "Welcome to American Idol, where we go around America and do blah, blah, blah," where they're having to explain what American Idol is to people. And it might have been the second show where my face came up. And the interesting thing is that it came out of nowhere. And I remember going to Las Vegas with my parents because I had flown out to do all of the auditioning for like the top 30, which then got whittled down to the top 10. And for some reason, my parents had come out, and then we all, as a break before the top 10 started, we went to Las Vegas and just stayed at the Bellagio or something. And people started recognizing me there, and it was so strange. It was so strange. I mean, I've grown up around entertainment all of my life. I've grown up around politics and lights and cameras. My mom was one of the first 200 people to start up CNN as an anchor woman. My dad was a politician in Atlanta, eventually became chief of police in Atlanta. So, I was used to that, seeing it happen to other people, but nothing prepared me for it happening to me.
That's awesome. And it had to be, so vindicating and being able to give something back to, you talked about being the hype man for the DJ at a bar mitzvah. And all of a sudden you're walking down the street of the Bellagio, people are freaking out, wanting your autograph. And, I think something, too, and I remember that. I remember how just explosive that first season was and how it just caught fire and out of nowhere. You're exactly right. It takes me back to thinking about the janky website, and all of a sudden I bet it got cleaned up real quick after those ratings came in.
But after Coca-Cola and Ford,
I bet
came on board for sure.
Yeah, I bet. And I want to ask you and I want to move from American Idol because you've done so many other things than that, but obviously that's kind of where the jumping off point was. You're with Kelly Clarkson at the end, obviously an amazing talent. You guys obviously know each other very well. Y'all work together. How excited were you? Because again, the opportunities were already there for you. You had already cemented your name, whether you won American Idol or not. How cool was that competition at the end? And how happy were you for her? And you guys both obviously blossomed after that. And really watching her career take off as well now, like yours did. Just how was that feeling watching?
You know what? I remember standing stage right in the wings with the executive producer at the time, Nigel Lithgow. And I remember leaning over to him as I looked out and I saw Kelly singing A Moment Like This live on national TV. And it was her turn. I had sang it. That year, everybody sang the same song. And so she and I were basically going head to head over this one song. And I had sang it, and it wasn't great. I wasn't happy with it. And then she sang it. And I just remember leaning over to him and being like, you're going to have to hire some extra security. And he's like, why? He looks over, he's like, why? What do you win this thing? There's going to be a riot. There's going to be a riot. It was so clear. Yeah. It was so clear. Her journey from the beginning, from literally making the choice to just, I'm going to go audition for this thing because my apartment burned down. And I don't know. I'm just gonna go do this, right?
It's
just
amazing.
Go take a shot, right? All the way through all the weeks, never being in the bottom 3 or 2 or whatever, and just performing and building so flawlessly to the very end, that crescendo, which was A Moment Like This, and then to see where she's gone with her career is amazing. And she will always be a friend and someone that I am a huge fan of. And so in that moment, then when I stood next to her, I was like, well. I remember that little child. I'm like, I tried.
Yeah, it was fun, boys. It was fun.
It was fun, guys. It was great. But I mean, it was the writing was on the wall. Yeah. And when I heard her name called, half of me was like, oh, please, God, don't let it be me. Because I should not be. If I win this thing, it's going to be for like hair or because I'm a boy and girls vote or like some dumb crap reason like that.
Yeah.
And the other half of me was like, please, please, please. Please let her win. And then when Ryan announced it and I turned and I was like, yes, baby. I remember saying it and hugged her. And, it just was a moment of relief. It was a moment of like closure. It was a moment of like, oh, finally we can be done.
Exactly. That's a great point. That's a great point. I know, I don't think people realize, and you brought it up, really how long the journey was to get to that point. And I do for 1 second want to remind our audience, head over to the jboyshow.com, hit that PayPal support button if you like what you're hearing. We're growing quick, having great guests like Justin Guarini, aka Lil Sweet, which I'm about to ask him about. So go check out the jboyshow.com, hit that donate button. But Justin, so you move on from American Idol. Obviously, your life's changed. You have opportunities left and right. And, something when I look at your career, the versatility of it, whether it's the acting and the singing, even commercials, movies, stuff like that, and you being able to kind of diversify your portfolio as an entertainer. I want to move to Lil Sweet because it's obviously been a smash hit. It's something you've done. What are we going on 5 years now?
6, yeah.
6. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. And so when Diet Dr. Pepper, they approached you, did they kind of tell you exactly what they wanted, or were they like, listen, we want you to feel this out. We want you to kind of do what feels right for you within obviously the framework of where they wanted the commercial to go?
Yeah, I would love to say that they approached me, but they didn't actually.
Really? Please indulge us.
I will tell you, I will indulge you. They had gone to New York. They being the people who auditioned the ad agency. And they had done a round in New York and not quite found someone. They went to LA and they had done auditions and not quite found the right person. They went to London and they
goodness.
auditioned folks, and they just couldn't find who they were looking for. And they were like, let's just one more time swing back through New York. If we don't get someone in New York, we're going to start making offers out to the usual suspects who would play, almost like SNL cast sort of like level people who you would recognize to play this role. And so they come back through New York, and I had just like days before I got this chance to go in and audition, had finished 9 months of doing a musical called Wicked on Broadway.
Oh yeah,
and
smash success.
Great, huge show. Huge commitment of like time and dancing and energy, and like I was like I was commuting 5 hours back and forth between my home here in Pennsylvania and New York, so I was exhausted. I was I'm done, thank you very much, I'm gonna enjoy my fourth quarter, my holiday. And my agent calls me and says, hey, we got this audition for you. I look at it, I see all these rock star names, I see all this, I'm like, this has nothing to do with me, I don't look or sound like any of these people. I'm not gonna do it, thank you very much. And then my agent calls me back, and my manager calls me, and she's like, did you turn down this audition for Lil Sweet or whatever, for Dr. Pepper? And I was like, yeah, I don't have anything. I didn't even know Lil Sweet at that time.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I don't have anything. She's like, you should go in and do it. I'm like, no, I'm tired. Wine.
Yeah,
Long story short, it was like, yes, no. Fine, I'll go. Fine, I'll go. I was like, out of spite. And so I get on the train, and my wife is like, I'm going to kill you. Because we had 2 small children at the time.
Wow.
And I was like, babe, I got to go to the audition. Blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so
I got to make money.
I got to make money, babe. Right, all that. And she's like, go. And so I go up 2.5 hours to get there. And like, either way, I'm spending 6 hours of my day outside of my house, no matter how long I stay in New York. And so I get to New York, and I go into the audition room, and there's this really funny episode of Friends where Joey like has a black turtleneck and a black jacket, and of course he's like the actor in the audition, and he goes into an audition room, and like everybody in there looks like him, is wearing a black jacket, is wearing a black turtleneck. And when I walked into the room, normally that's the case. You see in auditions, you see people who kind of look like you, kind of sound like you. There's a type, what's called.
Yeah.
And so I walk in, and nobody looks like me. They all look like rock stars, or like they have like cool, interesting crap going on with their clothes and their hair. And I'm like literally in jeans and like a sweatshirt, and I'm like, or like a t-shirt. And so I'm like, there's no chance in this thing.
Yeah.
No chance at this. And so it comes my turn to go in. And one of the greatest things that could have ever happened to me because of this audition, because of my attitude. I cared about doing a good job, right? Because I had come 2.5 hours, and the least I could do was walk in there and deliver a good performance, right? Mm-hmm. But I stopped caring about the outcome. And that's huge.
Okay. Even after the American Idol stuff, I don't mean to cut you off, but even after the American Idol stuff, it took the Lil Sweet audition for you walking in there to say, you know what? I'm just going to do it. What happens, happens.
Yes.
Life's amazing, isn't it, Justin?
It truly is. It truly is, Jake. And I mean, almost 14 years later, when you stand in front of 50 million people and you lose, there's a little part of you that goes, oh God.
Yeah.
Right? And you may just carry it with you. I did.
Yeah. I don't blame you, brother. I don't blame you.
And so, for a long time, I was like, I have something to prove. I still have something to prove. I still feel that way, but I've learned how to use that to my advantage. And so I walk in this room, and I'm like, I don't care. I don't care how it goes. I'm going to do a great job and just have fun. And wouldn't you know it, they gave me this cheap sequin jacket, which was like gold sequins that you could find at like Party City USA or whatever, and like a scarf. And I literally looked at the inside the room. It was just one person and a camera and these monitors, like TV screens that were hung vertically with all the words on them. So I didn't have to memorize anything. And I just read off of the screen. And in brackets at the top of the screen, it said, Lil Sweet slides in on his knees. And so, for the people who are watching this, I'll show you. And so I was like, hey, am I out of the frame yet? Can you see me on camera? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Am I out now? Yeah. He's like, yeah. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to have a good time, Justin, inside my head. I'm like, I'm having a good time, Justin. And I literally slid on my knees, and I was like, Lil Sweet sliding in on his knees. Oh, and just being an capital A ass. Yeah. Having a good time. There were things that I was singing, words I was singing that none of that had anything to do with the script. And so to answer your question, 6,000 minutes later, basically, I had such a fun time making things up, being so creative and just joyful and not bound by any of the worries that I had been bound.
So free.
Previously.
You felt free. Free.
Beautiful. Felt free, exactly. And that unlocked this creativity in me that just made this silly ass character that literally I have done voices and things like Lil Sweet in order to make my wife not grumpy anymore.
Wow.
My kids not grumpy. Like just silly. Just
that's where silly. It came
and my
from.
wife was awesome. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, my wife was absolutely awesome, and she was totally justified in being pissed off at me leaving after Wicked because she's like, I have been with these children for too long. I need your help. And so anyway, so like all of these things, the type of fun that I have with my wife at home, the type of fun that I have with my kids, like it just was all encapsulated in Lil Sweet. So what you see was originally a guy who, with the wonderful sort of freedom that Dr. Pepper gave me to play with, became this funny rock star who just loves to jump and run and slide out of places and hand people sweet treats.
Yeah, and it looks so natural too on screen. And we joked earlier, I wonder how many people really know that you're Little Sweet. And I even had on social media, we announced you were coming on. They're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that's Little Sweet. And then you look at the picture and you're like, oh, that's Justin Guarini, 100% when you look at him. But I do, as we kind of winding down here, we're here with Justin Guarini, Broadway star, actor, musician, Little Sweet from Dr. Pepper. And Justin, as we're kind of winding down here, I do have to ask, I've heard a rumor that on set of these commercials, like I watched you climb out of, I think, of a laundry machine one time. They're not shrinking your size. Is that actually an oversized, like blow up laundry machine you're climbing out of?
You know what? I wish everyone could come, and especially when we have more of the interactive sets. Like there was a time when I dove into some decorative pillows on a bed. There was another time I came out of a washing machine.
Yes.
There was another time I rode a pony. Like I wish people could come to the set and see, because in order to make 6 foot me look like I'm 3'6" Lil Sweet, they literally have to blow up everything around me. So if it's a bed, it's got to be a bed that's like 10 feet long and 5 feet or 7 feet wide. The washing machine is huge, like all these huge things. I'm like coming out of bushes, and they made like this massive square of bushes for me to jump out of. And so it's like, for some of the older listeners, you'll remember Lily Tomlin used to play this character where she sat in this oversized rocking chair, and Lily Tomlin was a tall woman, and they made this massive rocking chair, and she actually was the lead in a show called The Incredible Shrinking Woman. And so it's just so much fun, because they have to blow everything up to make it huge in order to make me look small.
See, I think people would think it'd be the opposite. I'm sure it just looks like the Hulk's house or something, like the laundry machine the Hulk would use or something. Yeah. But, Justin, that absolutely amazing. And man, before I let you go, you're doing something that's awesome. And I think it's so important, whether it's in entertainment, sports, whatever, and it's coreconfidence.com. And I want you to talk, because we have talked about confidence. We've talked about competitiveness, whether it was sports, whether it was on set at American Idol, going to get that Little Sweet interview, even auditioning for Broadway and Wicked and stuff like that. Can you just talk about, number one, why you started it, what it is, and where people, if that's something they're looking for, or maybe they're lacking that self-esteem or confidence that they can go find to maybe help them in their daily lives. And it doesn't mean you have to be a Broadway star or anything like that, but just to be able to get you from a mental health standpoint where you need to be to thrive in whatever you do.
Absolutely. Well, look, you practically just told it all for me right there, Jake. Basically, if you are under pressure and you want to learn how to profit, like the people we see on television, the people we see on sports, how they have learned, people you see on the screen, stage, we've all learned how to profit under pressure, which is why I created the company Profit under pressure. And as a part of that, I listened to the things that people said to me when they came to me, whether they were people who were entertainers like I was, or influencers or entrepreneurs. And everything that I heard was surrounding the idea of confidence, wanting more of it, how to develop it, how to really use it to serve them. And so that's why I came up with the core confidence method. And what I mean like core is like, think about core like you're going to the gym and you want to work your core, because that is the thing that holds everything else up, right? Those core muscles, especially in sports, are the ones that when everything else gets tired are going to take you and make sure that you are solid and able to deliver. Well, you don't have to be in sports. You don't have to be an entertainer. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to be a doctor. You just have to be somebody like me and my wife. We have 3 kids and 3 dogs at home. That kind of pressure every single day, especially after 2020 rolled through all of our lives, that kind of pressure is something you can't quantify. But what you can do is you can profit from it. And so I have this free 5-day challenge called the Core Confidence Challenge, which you can check out at coreconfidencechallenge.com. And what we do is we dig into a framework that I like to call core confidence. And it deals with 4 C's, 4 key elements that you can apply to 4 key areas of your body. And those elements are clarity, commitment, creativity, and certainty. So when you take clarity, commitment, creativity, and certainty and marry that up with your vision for your body, marry that up with the confidence that you want to feel in your relationships, be it with your significant other, your kids, or with your family. When you marry that real core confidence up with your business, whether that's just your understanding of money, making it, keeping it, or working for yourself or working for someone else, and then you put it and marry that confidence and put that into your spirituality, whether that's God, Allah, Yahweh, Buddha, the universe, the great nothing, spirit, it doesn't matter. When you're able to build true, lasting, deep core confidence in your life, it is a foundation which you can build the life of your dreams on, so that you can be more, do more, and ultimately give more than you ever thought was possible.
Man, that's great stuff. I love the 4 C's. I hope everybody checks out coreconfidencechallenge.com. Go take the 5-day challenge. Again, it can do nothing but help you from somebody that's done it in front of the biggest lights. 50 million people, as you brought. And Justin, from myself and my audience, I want to thank you so much for coming on. It's something where I think, being versatile on the show as well, and being able to marry sports and entertainment and talk about the drive and competitiveness is so important, in the confidence. And like we said, it doesn't have to be in that realm. It could be in anything. It could be in your job, in your marriage, anything like that. I really do appreciate your time. And it was great being able to talk with you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much, Jake. And thank you for putting this out there and for doing everything that you do and for having me here.
Well, Justin, I appreciate it. And I want to tell everybody out there, make sure you go subscribe at the Jboy Show YouTube channel. We've got great stuff coming, more great guests like Justin. Next week, we're jam-packed, got SEC head coaches, players, stuff like that. So make sure also you're following us on Instagram and Twitter at the Jboy Show. And also make sure you check out our merchandise. Got the shirt right here. We've got hoodies on the way, got hats on the way, and a little surprise as well. Make sure you're checking out thejboyshow.com. We'll talk about when we're releasing that. I know everybody's been blowing me up about the hoodies. Heck, I want one myself. I'm a hoodie guy myself. So get ready for those. We're going to drop those soon. So it's been another edition of the Jboy Show. And Jboy's going, gone.
The Jboy Show is produced by David Cohn, technical director Dave Hammock, creative director David Culbertson, audio engineer Feyzan, production assistant Kyle Orr, and our executive producers Crain, Vince Thompson, and of course we film at Melt Sports in Atlanta, GA. So come check us out.